He didn't act in the movies. He drew them. For nearly 50 years, every kid who stared at a glowing theater marquee or a bedroom wall filled with posters was looking at the work of one man, Drew Struzan. And now the artist who gave faces to the dreams of entire generations has passed away. On October 13, 2025, at the age of 78, the brush that built Hollywood finally went still. News of his death, after a long struggle with Alzheimer's, rippled through film culture like a quiet heartbreak. Directors, actors, and fans all said the same thing. Nobody drew like Drew, because while filmmakers use cameras to tell stories, Drew Struzan used light, paint, and imagination to make them immortal. When you think of E.T., you probably see that glowing fingertip touching a child's hand against the stars. When you remember Indiana Jones, you picture the hat, the whip, and that shadowed grin frozen in adventure. When you think of Luke Skywalker, you don't see Mark Hamill, you see the poster. That was Drew's power. He didn't just illustrate films, he defined how we remember them, but his story began far from red carpets or studio lots. Born in 1947 in Oregon, Drew grew up poor. Art supplies were a luxury. He joked once that he learned to draw on toilet paper because that was all he had. His parents weren't connected to Hollywood. They just knew their son couldn't stop sketching. By the time he reached high school, his teachers saw it too, this quiet boy whose drawings looked alive. He earned a scholarship to the Art Center College of Design in Los Angeles, where he trained in fine art and technical illustration. Money was tight. Drew worked nights just to afford paint and brushes. He'd finish assignments by flashlight, selling small portraits to classmates to pay rent. But every stroke made him better, more patient, more precise, more human. His first big break wasn't in movies at all. It was in music. In the early 1970s, record companies needed album covers that stood out in crowded stores. Drew delivered. He painted for Alice Cooper, the Bee Gees, Black Sabbath, and countless others. Those covers caught eyes, surreal, bold, emotional, and Hollywood noticed. Studios were desperate for artists who could make movie posters feel like events, not advertisements. Photographs couldn't capture magic, but Drew's hand could. His first major film job came in the mid-70s. But the moment that changed everything arrived with Star Wars. George Lucas saw his portfolio and was instantly convinced this was the guy who could turn a film into legend. Drew's style, soft edges, glowing light, heroic faces arranged like constellations, became the visual heartbeat of Lucas's universe. Then came Indiana Jones, E.T., Back to the Future, Blade Runner, The Muppet Movie, First Blood, Hook, and so many more. By the 1980s, Drew Struzan wasn't just painting posters. He was painting Hollywood itself. Steven Spielberg called his work event art. George Lucas said, "Through a single image, Drew opened worlds full of life in vivid color." Their movies made box office history, but Drew's posters made them unforgettable. The magic of his style was that it felt alive. Every portrait seemed to breathe. Every reflection of light looked cinematic before the projector even rolled. He'd study film stills, listen to the soundtrack, and paint until emotion came through the paper. He used airbrush, colored pencils, acrylics, whatever could make texture feel like memory. While other artists chased fame, Drew hid from it. He once said, "The less you know about me, the more you see the movie." He didn't crave credit. He cared about craft. His wife, Carol, became his manager, handling business so he could focus entirely on art. Together, they built a quiet life. No Hollywood mansion, no entourage, just two people in a studio that smelled of paint and music. The 1980s and early 1990s were his golden era. His posters decorated theater walls, billboards, dorm rooms, and bedrooms across the world. Teenagers tore them out of magazines and taped them above their beds. A Drew Struzan poster wasn't just a movie ad, it was a window. You didn't have to know the plot. One glance told you what the story felt like, but technology was changing. By the late 1990s, computers and Photoshop started replacing hand-painted art. Studios wanted faster, cheaper, digital composites. The era of the movie poster as fine art was ending. Drew adapted, but quietly. He continued painting for special editions and re-releases: Star Wars, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, Hellboy 2, The Thing, Pan's Labyrinth. Directors who loved him refused to let go. Guillermo del Toro once said, "Drew doesn't just paint images, he paints feelings." Then in 2008, After finishing the poster for Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, Drew announced his retirement. He was in his early 60s. He said he wanted to spend time with family to rest his eyes after decades of deadlines. But friends noticed something else. He was forgetting things. A name here, a brushstroke there. Soon Alzheimer's became part of his story. The disease crept in slowly, dimming the light of a man who had illuminated everyone else's imaginations. Still, visitors said he never lost kindness. Even when memories faded, he smiled when someone mentioned E.T. or Indy. When news of his passing arrived in October 2025, tributes flooded the internet. Spielberg wrote, "His posters made our movies destinations. Just a glance brings back the age we were when we saw them." George Lucas called him a genius whose work opened worlds. Guillermo del Toro posted, "The world lost a genial man, a supreme artist, and I lost a friend." Fans posted photos of their childhood bedrooms covered in Drew Struzan posters, folded corners, tape marks, faded colors but still glowing. You could feel it. Part of Hollywood's soul had slipped away. Drew Struzan painted over 150 films, countless album covers, and inspired thousands of artists who now fill our timelines with digital fan art that traces back to him. He never saw himself as a celebrity, yet his work may be the most seen art in movie history. Think about it. Before streaming, before trailers went viral, the poster was the promise. It had to whisper, "Come see what's waiting inside." And Drew knew exactly how to whisper. His influence stretches far beyond nostalgia. You see echoes of his composition in Marvel's ensemble posters, in Star Wars reboots, even in Netflix thumbnails that mimic his symmetry and light. Every designer chasing that cinematic look owes a little to Drew, and yet he stayed humble. In one rare interview, he said, "I just hope people feel something good when they look at my work." That's all any artist wants. That humility made directors trust him even more. They'd send him early footage, knowing he wouldn't leak a thing. He'd return a single painting that captured the entire film, plot, tone, emotion, thus in one frame. His studio remains preserved exactly as he left it. Paint-stained tables, brushes frozen mid-motion, sketches stacked in neat chaos. Visitors describe the room as holy ground for movie lovers, a temple of imagination. Among his unfinished works are rumored to be alternate versions of posters for Harry Potter, Avatar, and a personal project titled The Light Within. Whether they'll ever be shown to the public, no one knows. But those who've seen them say they're pure Drew, soulful, luminous, eternal. Today, Hollywood's marketing machines churn out endless CGI collages. But ask any filmmaker of the old school and they'll tell you, Drew made movies feel alive before you even saw them. He gave faces to heroes, shadows to villains, and wonder to everyone in between. He didn't just illustrate imagination, he elevated it. When people talk about movie magic, they're often talking about what Drew Struzan painted by hand. So what remains now that he's gone? A universe of color, a museum of dreams, and a reminder that even in an industry obsessed with speed and spectacle, patience and craft still matter, because long before AI, before digital tools and templates, there was one man with a brush who made you believe in adventure. Friendship, courage, and light, Drew Struzan once said, "I paint what I love, and I love what I paint." Maybe that's why we loved his work back. He painted hope. He painted memory. And now, as Hollywood says goodbye, his art keeps whispering from 1,000 walls, the story isn't over yet.